Today on 3D Outdoors, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to riding on the Black Hills National Forest off-road trails with your UTV, ATV, dirt bike, whatever the case may be, right after this. All right, before we get into the tips and tricks, the first thing I want to do is give a huge thank you to Dave and Debbie for setting this up for us. Dave, you'll recognize from the channel, so you already know Dave, and Debbie is his lovely wife, and she set up, well, we don't want to say this to Dave, but she probably set a lot of this up, so that's just between us. But thank you very much for setting this up, Dave and Debbie. I had a blast. Can't wait to do it again. Looking forward to next year. Hopefully we can grab a cabin right away in the spring and get out there. But on to the tips and tricks now. And that leads directly into it. First tip, go with someone. Even better if that someone has been there before. So Dave and Deb had been out there many times, so they knew these tips and tricks that we're going to go through here. So they were able to teach us, they knew the trails, all of that. So go with someone. But even if they haven't been there before, if you go with someone, you have someone to plan with, you have someone to converse with while you're there. If they're riding with you, if they're riding separately, you have multiple rigs in case you get into trouble, some way mechanically or stuck or whatever the case may be. You can try to figure things out if you happen to get lost together. But being there with someone is just, to me, just awesome. Now, could you do it by yourself? Definitely. You can do this by yourself. I would be a lot more cautious if I was out there by myself, but I would prefer to be there with someone. So my first tip is to go with someone. Tip number 2, know the etiquette of the trails. That was a great thing. Dave and Deb had been there, so they knew the hand signals. So if you were the only rider and you met someone, you would hold your hand up in a fist outside the window when you met someone, so they knew there wasn't somebody else behind you, or you motion 1 or 2, however many rigs you had behind you waiting. That way they knew, so you avoid accidents, things like that. They also knew that the rule was that you had to have a trail sticker for the Black Hills National Forest. So first thing, you gotta go buy that. So they knew that rule, but they also knew that we would be driving from paved road to unpaved trails, and on paved roads in South Dakota, licensed roads, you have to have licensed vehicle. So you'd know that as well. So all those little tips and tricks that they put together was just very, very helpful. The next tip is plan ahead, and I mean plan way ahead. Don't think you're going to get a week or 2 out and just start figuring it out and you're going to go. Some of you may be able to do that, not me. And Dave and Deb started this way in advance because they knew what the popularity of these trails were out there. So they started planning months and months and months in advance. So as soon as the cabin became available, they grabbed it. So that was awesome. So plan plenty in advance. Now, along with the planning part, I'm going to hook in the part that we talked about earlier with riding with someone. When you're planning in advance, if you're doing it as a group, you can save a bunch of money. And planning in advance, you could probably buy things in advance and get better deals on them. When you go out there, it's going to cost you some money, and let's face it, nowadays things are getting expensive. So you're going to want to plan ahead so you can plan out your meals. Deb did an awesome job of planning out all of our meals so we could split the cost on the meals. We weren't running into Deadwood every night and spending a ton of money at fancy restaurants or anything like that. She had lunches all prepped for on the trail, so you could stop at a scenic overlook and have a sandwich and a bag of chips and a beverage of your choice. And breakfasts all figured out. She planned all of that. Again, thank you, Debbie, for doing all that. That was amazing. But make sure you plan these things out in advance. And when you're planning, let's get into the next part, which is a tip that goes with the planning, and it's rig preparation. Make sure you have your rig ready to go and you have the tools you need in case you run into minor problems on the trail. You'll see I posted a video about changing the oil in my Polaris Ranger. I did that in preparation to going out there. I was due for an oil change. Gearboxes weren't due yet, so that'll be coming up here. I'm ready to change the gear fluids in those here probably before ice fishing season. But make sure that your vehicle is prepped and ready to go. Now, I had to put a street legal kit on my rig to get it ready to go so that I was legal to be on the road. Blinkers, horn, all of that. Mine didn't come with that. So that's one of those plan ahead. It's preparation, get your rig ready to go. Also, another thing to look at is tires. Now, I did it with the factory tires on there. Probably shouldn't have, but those are just tires. They're not rated bias ply, they're not rated radial, they're not rated anything. They're just off-road tires. I have since upgraded, which you'll see in another video that Dave and I are in that I will end up posting here. But just get everything ready to go. Get your rig ready to go. Have some tools along in case you need to change a tire. Have a spare tire. Goes back to the being out there with somebody. Dave and I split the items that we were hauling. So I had a spare tire in the back of mine. He had a jack in his. And if one of us, we have the same bolt pattern on our tire, so if we had a flat, we could use that tire to switch around if we couldn't fix it with the plug kit that we had along. So just make sure in your preparation of your rig you have spare minimal parts. I know a lot of people probably don't know how to dig in and fix things in depth. We could actually, with the group that we have, and especially with Carl, and I have a bit of a mechanical background, and Dave, you've seen Dave working out here in the shop with us before on rigs, we could patch something that's probably pretty bad back together if we had to, if we had the parts out in the trail. But make sure you have your rig prepped and ready to go. Make sure you have your tools and your backup items ready to go. All right, and the last tip is to make sure that you have maps. Now, when we checked in at the cabin that we're checking in at, and we bought the sticker so that we're legal to ride on the trails, and that's probably something you have to look at no matter what trail system you go to in whatever state you ride in, to see if you have to have a sticker to allow you to go on the trails. But they gave us a map, regular fold-out map. But prior to that, we were riding in the car one day, and Debbie was talking about an app called Avenza Maps. And that mapping system has all the trails that we'd be riding on out there. So I just handed her my phone, and she loaded them on my phone so that we had it when we were riding on the trails. And she was using this to map out where we went. And the neat thing is, with the phones, you'd say, well, you'd run out of cellular reception, so you wouldn't be able to use the map. The phone kind of turns itself into a sat phone. So that app doesn't run off your cellular, it runs off satellite, off GPS. So you still have the map even though you can't call anyone because you're out of cell phone range, which was awesome. So you could still follow the maps. Even the smaller one that Dave and I went to later on here in South Dakota along the Missouri River, they had a map that they gave you. It was kind of a crude map, but it was a map so that you knew where you were going on their trails. If you have the option for maps, make sure you get maps to keep you from getting lost while you're out on the trail. And again, thank you, Dave and Deb, for putting this trip together for us. There will be other videos that'll just probably be trail riding with music in the background. I know I'm showing the trail riding behind us right now as I'm talking, and it was a lot of fun. They're trails rated for beginners all the way to experts, so you could do whatever you wanted to out there. You could. So it was just a lot of fun, and looking forward to doing it again. All right, there you go. There's some tips and tricks for riding in the Black Hills National Forest. If you have any questions, please post them down below. If I can, I'll definitely answer them for you. And there'll be some other videos coming up. You see the trail riding video behind us here. Some of the future videos will probably have some trail riding with music along with it. It was just beautiful scenery out there, so I want to share that. But don't have a lot of voiceover to go with those, but we'll make sure we get them out there with some music so you can enjoy the scenery. Just beautiful area out there in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So there you go. This is Dan with 3D Outdoors, reminding you to get into the outdoors and enjoy everything it has to offer. If you like this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, hit the like, share it with your friends, and make sure to go over to 3d-outdoors.com. That's our website where we pull everything together. See you next time.